Hello.
Hello?
Hello, everyone on the phone. Please put your phones on mute. We already have started the presentation. Thank you.
If you guys had any specials, discounts-wise or shipping-wise that I could use. Okay.
Can everyone hear us on the line?
I do. And now what
Can anyone on the line hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay.
I have $300 in my shopping cart, so I guess it's free.
Sorry, someone obviously does not know that we're in the middle of our...
Okay, let me go to the shopping cart and put that down then.
Please, everyone, put your phones on mute. Okay. We're going to go ahead and resume. Prior to his current government service, Mr. Leney gained practical insight into the opportunities and challenges facing small businesses as a senior executive in 2 successful small businesses. His personal experience as a government contractor have enabled Mr. Leney to mentor small businesses on the complexities of the federal acquisition process. Mr. Leney is a veteran of the United States Army. Thank you for your service, sir. Serving from 1973 to 1995. Among his military assignments, he led an armored cavalry squadron in the Persian Gulf War of 1991 and was Chief of Strategic Plans and Policy for the Department of the Army. He holds a Master's of Public Policy degree from Harvard University and a Master of Business Administration from Georgetown University and a Bachelor of Science from the U.S. Military Academy. And it's very noteworthy that Tom came from the private sector. He's very familiar with the challenges faced by businesses marketing to the federal government. He's been in your shoes before and is really a great resource for your questions in how to best access the Department of Veterans and other agencies. Tom, we're going to go ahead and switch seats. Be on camera. Your presentation is here. Page up and page down, and the space bar will also go to the next slide.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for giving me a chance to come and speak with you all today. A couple things I think you know from the biography that Joe so graciously read. Number one, I am a veteran. And number two, I come out. I have a pretty good appreciation of what it means to be. I've been 2 weeks from not making. And I know what that does to a small business, particularly a small business owner or a small business senior executive. And I've been very fortunate. It's not often that you get to take on a job that you get at some of the issues that used to really upset you when you were a small business. And so I'm really excited at the VA. I've been fortunate to work with some leaders who care about small businesses. And my commitment is to make it a place where small businesses who have the ability to add value to the mission of the VA can do so. And that's what I'm really here to talk about today. Unfortunately, what you all really want me to talk about today, I'm not going to speak to. And that is, if I were to put myself in your shoes, what I really want is to have Tom Leney come in here and speak about specific requirements that I can bid on. Okay? I'm not going to do that because I don't have those requirements. And what I found to be pretty useless was for a director of OSBU to come in and talk about somebody else's requirements when I couldn't really give you useful information. So I have a rule: talk about what you know and know what you talk about. That's what I'm going to try to do today. For those of you in the room, you have to represent everybody else here. I want you to take out your smartphones. When I stop saying something useful to you, I want you to start working your emails. Because you don't have the time. You don't have time to sit here and listen to some government official talk nonsense. Okay? And if you really think I'm talking nonsense, feel free. If the ones in the room can represent everybody else, wave your hands and I'll move on. What I do want to talk about today is I'm here because we have established a partnership with MBDA. particularly the Federal Procurement Center. Why? Because they're the most logical partner for us within the MBDA. Our goal through this partnership is for me to identify those opportunities within the Department of Veteran Affairs where we believe small businesses can add value. The MBDA part of the partnership helps deliver procurement, what we call procurement-ready small businesses. When we both do our piece, we can get to what I call win-win. And so let me talk a little bit. Why is that important to us at the VA? Because we are very serious about doing business with small businesses. And I only show this to say that we do $6.5 billion last year with small business. Secretary Shinseki, and I'm sure our new secretary will be the same, are committed to enabling small businesses to add value, particularly veteran-owned small businesses. We make no apologies. We do vets first. That's evident here that almost 2/3 of our small business procurement dollars go to veterans. We have a legislative mandate to do that. We are the only agency in the federal government that has that mandate, and we take it very seriously. So when I talk today, I guess that one of the first point I make is that we're serious about this. We put our money where our mouth is. Let's talk a little bit about, I told you I wasn't going to talk about specific opportunities because I don't know enough about them to be useful to you. And the people you really want to talk to are the ones who have the requirements. I get that. When I sat where you sit as a small business person, I didn't want to talk to the OSBU director. I wanted to talk to the people who had the money, had the requirements, so I could do business with them. But I wanted to give you guys a sense. If you look here, we've identified where are the major opportunities for small businesses. And this is an interesting slide. You look at the NAICS codes here on the left-hand side, the 3-digit NAICS, tells you where we do a lot of work with small businesses. For example, you look at the heavy and civil engineering construction. No, small businesses do not build hospitals for us. They are subcontractors on hospitals. If you look at specialty trade contractors, those are HVAC, those are people who do drywall, those are carpenters, those are people who do facility maintenance. And you can see we do a great deal of business with small businesses in that arena. In fact, that is I require contracting officers and program managers show cause why they're not working with a small business, since historically over 90% of the work we get done in that arena gets done by small businesses. And you can see down through the remainder of these things. This is not the only place where we buy goods and services from small business, but this reflects approximately half of our spend, okay, and actually about 1/3 of our spend, and you can see that about 60% of it goes to small businesses. So if you are working in these NAICS codes, there's opportunities for you in the VA. But your obvious question is, how do I get access to these opportunities? How do I, thank you very much, Tom. Now I know I'm interested in furniture and related product manufacturing. How do I gain access? So I want to talk to you a little bit about a paradigm that I see for how you do that. It relates to, I think, the entire federal market space. It's particularly it relates to the VA. And what I want to do is tell you what is today, what reality is today. And that reality you may not like, but I think what I owe you here is truth as I know it. You don't need to deal in a fantasy land. You don't need to deal in what might be. You need to deal in what is. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things we're doing at the VA to change that reality. First, there's 5 challenges that I see you face to successfully doing business with the VA. The first is, by and large, the procurement decision makers in the Department of Veteran Affairs do not know who you are. Everybody in the Department of Veteran Affairs, I have yet to run into a single procurement decision maker, whether that's a contracting officer or a program manager, that hasn't heard of Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin does $41 billion a year with the federal government. Everybody knows who Lockheed Martin is. If they don't, Lockheed Martin the president of Lockheed Martin is very upset with his advertising and marketing people because they spend a lot of money on that. And they're a very big business. They do a lot of business with it. But by and large, unless you are already doing any business in the VA, procurement decision makers in the VA have no idea who you are. And that's your first hurdle. Now, good news is, getting over this hurdle is relatively simple. And I'll just identify a couple of things that people may not think about. Ask yourself, and the good news is, in this day and age, as we get into the 21st century, just about everybody has a website. If you don't have a website, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Do not do anything else. Go back and get yourself a website. Why? Because to be credible in the 21st century in the federal market space, when somebody learns who you are, the first thing they're going to do, not the first thing, but what they will do is they will eventually go to your website. If it's not there, you do not exist in their mind. You are immediately not a credible institution. Okay? Second thing, I want you to go visit your website. More importantly, if you know any federal contracting person or any federal program officer, or have your spouse, or have somebody who doesn't like you, visit your website and take a critical look at it. It doesn't need to be artsy. It doesn't need to be creative. It needs to provide information to federal procurement decision makers quickly and easily. What do they want to know about you? They want to know what it is that you do well, how it is you can help them. And this sounds kind of obvious, but I'll tell you, I worked for a company who had a very creative website. And when I looked at it, I said, wow, I can't figure out what it is that we do. I can't figure out how it is we're going to help the federal government. I would urge you to remember, government officials are not bleeding-edge creative people. They got a need. They got a job they got to get done. They have a need to help them do that job, and they want to find out the information they need. So does your website make it easy for them to find that answer? They will not spend 30 minutes on your website trying to figure out what you do. They will spend 3 minutes on your website trying to figure out what you do. And if they can't get to what they need to know about your company within 3 clicks, they will stop clicking. They will click off. So it seems kind of obvious, but I am struck how many times that I run into small businesses that either don't have a website, not too much of that, but their website isn't conducive to business. Okay? The other piece of awareness, and you're doing it right now, you have to show up. And I hate to say that because many things you show up at have a limited return on investment. But oftentimes, small businesses show up at the wrong thing. Showing up here, you have a challenge. You're talking to a government official who has no requirements. Well, actually, I have requirements when I put my program manager hat on. But if you're not meeting my requirements, you're not going to learn as much today as you need to learn. You're not going to be you may learn a lot, hopefully, something useful, but you're not going to be able to do business. So my advice to you, if you want people to be aware of you, show up where government procurement decision makers go to learn about their requirements. Again, seems obvious, but I'm amazed at how often people miss it. Don't go to small business conferences. That's not where government people go to learn about their requirements. That's where they go with all their defenses up. That's where they go because somebody dragged them there. That's where they go to okay, I'm going to do my mandatory time and then I'm going to leave. The place that I learned to go as a small business person, I suggest you go to the substantive conferences. So if I'm selling construction services to the VA, I want to go to the conference that VA construction officials go to learn about their business. Why? Because they're there to learn. They're there to connect. And they're not there being defensive about, wow, everybody wants to talk to me, is going to try to pick my pocket or do business with me or get a contract from me. So it's the substantive industry conferences that I think you will find are most useful. Which requires you to know a little bit about your customer to say, where do they go to learn their business? Third thing, and this is a tough one. I want to tell you a little bit about what we're doing about it. One of the techniques that those of you who've been around the federal market space a little while know about is called sources sought, the sources sought process. And that's market research. Market research is not easy. Good market research is difficult. Market research is the responsibility of program managers and contracting officers. So program managers and contracting officers sit there and they go, okay, I kind of think I understand what I need. Now I've got to do market research. And so they put out, the first thing they do is they talk to people that they know. Okay? So if you are inside a government agency, you're doing work with somebody, it's very important that you talk to your current customer, convince them, and this goes to the last item, which is performance. If you're performing well, hey, if I'm doing a good job for you, if you know of anybody that I should also be talking to, please let them know and let me know. Because there's nothing better than that reference. But absent that reference, and you're not one of the ones that they talk to, if you are home free. You have passed the next two hurdles. But if you're not, then it's absolutely important to respond to sources sought. And I absolutely recognize, when I was in small business, we were a fairly good-sized small business, but we had to make choices about what do we respond to. Because sometimes the requests for information were a little bit ambiguous. And I will tell you, put yourself in the position of someone who's going to read 20 responses. If you can't tell it to them in the first 2 pages, don't bother. Because after the first 2 pages, they've stopped being interested in whatever you had to say. And I recognize that the RFIs, request for information, may be ambiguous. Sometimes you got to take a shot, you got to take a guess. Better to take that guess and give it to them in the first 2 pages. And now if you want to add other stuff, but if you haven't got their attention, you won't get it. I can't tell you how many times I talk to program managers, they show me, say, Tom, we just did an RFI in my own office. We got 19 responses. And the program manager that I assigned to go look at those responses said, Tom, are you kidding me? I mean, this is in the Office of Small Business. And he goes, Tom, help me out here. I got to read 19 responses. Some of them were like 12 pages long. Now, what did I tell him? I said, I want you to go look at those responses because they are the responses of small. It was a proposed. We in my office were trying to set this thing aside for service-disabled, veteran-owned small businesses. So if anywhere wants to go small business, it's us. But I had a program manager going, oh, Tom, please help me out here. I don't want to read all this stuff. So you got it. I'll tell you right now, those 19 companies had better have grabbed his attention in the first 2 pages, or no matter what I told him, he stopped reading. Second piece, the quality of the RFI is very important to get at the second obstacle, which is risk mitigation. Because if the response to the RFI is sloppy, the response to the RFI is not targeted, the response to the RFI is not crisp, they say, wow, do I want to read a proposal from this firm? Probably not. And the biggest, probably the single biggest issue for program managers and contracting officers is lack of effective response to RFIs. And I will tell you as clearly as I can, if a program manager puts out an RFI and does not get sufficient response for small business, you just gave him or her a free pass to go with a big business. Now, I will confess to you, when I was out there in the small business world, there's times I said, you know what, I'm not going to respond to this RFI because I know a lot of other responses will happen. And I can think of a couple of cases where, 6 weeks later it came out as a big business, full and open competition. And I'm thinking, crap, I probably should have responded. And then I found out afterwards that everyone had the same attitude that I did, and they didn't get sufficient responses, and that becomes carte blanche, free pass, to not consider small business anymore. And remember, I'm not trying to put down my colleagues in the acquisition world, but they don't know who you are. Because they don't know who you are, think about when you want to do work with another business. If you don't know them, what's your perception of risk? It's high. How much can you trust them? Can they deliver? And if it's high risk, because you don't know them, then if you have somebody you know or you know of or has their reputation, that's where you end up. So I understand the pain that RFI responses can be. So remember, you are responding on behalf of a category of business because what you want to do is you would rather compete with other small businesses than take on Lockheed Martin or GDIT or Northrop Grumman or Clark Construction. Because your challenge is they can do everything you can do, and they can do it well. So you don't want, I'll be frank, you don't want them in the game. And the biggest way to do that is to do RFI responses. Now, what are we doing about this? One of the things that I've realized is that RFI responses are a pain. They often have a quality issue. So we've done a couple of pilots now where we're trying to change the approach to RFIs to put it in the format of a questionnaire rather than open-ended questions. But we've had great success with it in that it takes less than 30 minutes for a small business to respond. We have a much better capability to analyze the data, turn it into a market research report, and provide information that the government decision makers can use. Because at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about, is to enable the procurement decision makers to say, yes, I just don't need to hear anything else. This is viable for small business. We're going to be expanding that in the coming year across more elements in the VA. It's not done everywhere. So let me move from awareness. That's the easy one now.
Can I interrupt for just a second? You mentioned the RFI response. Did you say you've standardized the?
No, we have not standardized. I want to be very clear about that. We have piloted a different approach, which is a questionnaire-based approach, as opposed to an open, here are my requirements, give me your thoughts on them.
Okay.
Because we've found it to be much sharper, much easier to respond to. The information provided is consistent across everybody. We've done 2 pilots. We are using my own office's procurements, and we're expanding into the IT space and into the medical services space. So over the course of next year, you're going to start seeing more and more of these come out. And when you see a questionnaire-based RFI, take a look at it because it's a much different level of effort. And it's designed to be iterative. So we send it out the first time, we'll go out to FedBiz Ops. And here's an important thing when you see one of these RFIs from us. First one goes out through FedBiz Ops, everybody gets to see it. We then take the responses from the first cut, we ask a second set of questions, okay? Those second set of questions only go out to people who responded to the first RFI, because we've already met the standard of giving everybody access to the opportunity. The conclusion, not a presumption, the conclusion we draw is if you didn't respond to the RFI, you're not interested. And the subsequent questionnaires go out to a narrower and narrower audience. Because remember, my purpose with these RFIs is to be able to give information to the procurement decision maker they can use. I'm going to be brutally honest. I don't care if you get a procurement. I care that your category of small business gets opportunities to compete for the procurement. And if you are the most competitive, hallelujah, hats off to you, go do business. If you're not, that's on you. And the reason we're taking this approach is we can get better information without the grind of trying to write an essay about a requirement that's not very clear. I get that. Because what are we trying to get at? We're trying to get at, which is, in my judgment, what is the biggest hurdle, your biggest hurdle of doing business with the federal government, and that's to mitigate perceived risk. Government officials are risk averse. If they were entrepreneurs, if they were risk takers, quite frankly, most of them wouldn't be in the federal government. There's a few, but they're a minority. I don't mean to insult my colleagues, but generally speaking, people who are in government don't grade high on the risk meter. So if they perceive you're a high-risk solution, you can expect that they're not going to do business with you because their goal is to get a mission done. And if they think you're going to have risk, to have a failure in a contract is a major problem. I have a failure in a contract right now, my own organization. It's part of an SDV-OSB set-aside. What do you think my view is of the category of SDV-OSBs when I'm just having a major mission meltdown because of failure in performance? I'm the Office of Small and Veteran-Owned Small Businesses. I'm your best friend. Imagine how a program really started out not particularly wanting to go small business who has a mission failure. So risk is key. The challenge that small businesses have, remember, they don't know you, okay? They know Lockheed Martin. And I'll give you the example. And I'm only picking on Lockheed Martin because they're the biggest government contractor, and they do a lot of things well. If a contracting officer contracts with a large, well-known company that has lots of past performance, lots of corporate experience, and that company fails, it's not the fault of the contracting officer. They tell the program manager, they tell their boss, not my fault. Why? Because I had every right to expect this company could succeed. If they set that procurement aside for a small business and they give it to your business that no one's ever heard of, and you fail, whose fault is it? It's the contracting officer's fault. It's the program manager's fault. You know what the program manager tells the contracting officer? You made me go small business. They failed. It's your fault. You shouldn't. I should have been able to choose Lockheed Martin. So this perception of risk. It's not risk. It's perception of risk. So the issue is, how do you mitigate that perceived risk? Okay? And this is where we are pursuing a partnership with MBDA. This is where MBDA is important to you and important to us. Is we are seeking, through your collaboration with MBDA, to have MBDA say, okay, here are small businesses that we have worked with and we can vouch for. They are procurement ready. I'm not in the business of getting small businesses procurement ready. I don't have those resources, and that's not what you want me to do. I'd suggest to you, none of you that's listening in on this webinar want me to get you procurement ready. What you want me to do is to operate at my comparative advantage, which is to access the opportunities. I buy that. I get that. I was there. That's what I want the Ozdebu to do for me when I was sitting where you sit. What that means is you got to get yourself, you got to be ready to do business. So our approach right now is we are partnering with folks like MBDA to say, okay, you work with these businesses, you help develop their capacity, and you let me know which ones are ready, and I will work to get them access. And I'm going to talk about that program here a little bit later. The other issue of risk is to start small. Now, everybody wants the $1 million contract. Everybody wants the $10 million contract. But there is a category of contracts that I encourage you to go after. And that's those contracts that fall under the simplified acquisition threshold. And I'm going to give you some secret sauce here today. Everybody wants secret sauce, right? What's the secret to success? I'll tell you what I think is a secret to success. And I've used it, and I've used it since I've been in the government. Think small. If you're already in an agency, you're already in an office, think big. Do well and leverage that. But if you're new, what do you want to do? You want to go where the procurement decision makers go. You want to get access to them. You want to mitigate risk. Small is low risk. You think, if I don't know you, all I've done is seen your RFI, spent a few minutes with you, I'm going to give you a $10 million contract that my organization is depending on. But when you get the opportunity, which we're going to talk about next, to get access, and you're talking to them about, you're identifying small requirements, and you say to them, I can work this requirement. $50,000, $20,000, $150,000. There's a category of acquisitions in the federal government called under what they call a simplified acquisition threshold, which is $150,000. What that does is it doesn't have the same rigor, the same competitive requirements that bigger contracts do. It also doesn't have the same level of risk. So if you're able to go to a government official, after a few minutes of conversation with them or after conversations with them, you identify they have a small requirement. That's the requirement you want to grab. And if it's a simplified acquisition threshold requirement, if they aren't talking in those terms, because some of them don't even know what that is, okay? Educate. You reduce their perception of risk that you're a risky supplier if you're able to educate them about stuff that they don't know. You will be, I think, amazed and disappointed sometimes with the level of knowledge that government officials have about their own procurement process. Why? Because it's complicated. Particularly on the program side, that's not what they do. They're worried about getting their mission done. They have this process that they have to grapple with. If you can help them understand it, and one of the things that MBDA does very well is help you understand that process. Educating somebody, when you do that, you help them gain confidence in you. Many of you have probably been to seminars where a law firm, an accounting firm, some professional services firm gives you, you have a breakfast and they tell you about something and you learn something. You know why they do that? Not because they're all closet college professors. It's because what they expect you to do is after you've been to that session, you go, wow, I didn't know that. This guy was able to explain it to me, and I have this problem. Maybe I'm going to go to this guy and get his help professionally. Same thing from a procurement decision maker and you. So, long story, you go after the small deal and give them more than they paid for. What? Give them more than they paid for? If it's a $100,000 job, give them $200,000 worth of work. Tom, are you kidding me? That's going to cost me money. You know what they call that in a grocery store? A loss leader. Do you think you pay full price for milk in a supermarket? No, you don't. What they advertise on the newspaper is their loss leaders. So what's the purpose of the loss leader? To get you into the store, to demonstrate that you want to go to that store and then you're going to buy other stuff. So let me tell you the secret sauce. You go after a small project, whether it's $20,000 or $50,000 or $80,000 or $140,000, A, it's a simplified process. B, now you've gone from someone they don't know, someone who is high risk, to someone that they know, someone who has delivered for them, okay? And now they're a reference. And what do you walk away with? A past performance, corporate experience, a customer, and hopefully an excellent CPARS rating. Okay? What are you doing? You're buying your way in. Start small. You try to start big. Don't go after $1 million project that promised $2 million because they won't believe you. Heck, I won't believe you. Okay? Go in small, demonstrate it, give them more than they paid for, and now you've got a customer and a reference. And they go, wow, yeah, I'll give you a reference because you did great stuff for me. And that's where you get the opportunity to do more for that customer. And believe me, every single federal organization has needs, and they have small needs. And if you can help them understand they have a small need and do something about it, huge plus, huge win. Now, you go in there and deliver $10,000 worth of work for $20,000, sorry, not too useful. Okay, now let's you get through these two things, you get to the issue of access. That's what you all really want to focus on. And I get that. What you need in order to do business is access to the people who make the decisions, the people who develop the requirements. You don't need access to me. Unless I'm in my program manager hat, then yeah, you want access to me because if I got the money and I got the need, that's the person you want to talk to. And you want to talk to the easiest person to talk to is the contracting office. They're the face. But they don't do the requirements. they don't necessarily in all cases understand the requirements. They're the how and the when. The people you really got to talk to are the program managers that set the requirements. They are the hardest people to get to, and it's by design. What? It's by design? Okay, this isn't official, this is unofficial. I will tell you, they're not excited about meeting with you, maybe. Why? Because they don't know you, remember? They perceive you because they don't know you as high risk. Why would they spend their time? And oh, by the way, they've probably met 10 or 12 over the last years or months, people like you, and they walked away saying, wow, this didn't help me. Okay? So they say, learn my lesson. I'm not going to do that again. Okay? Biggest issue that I have. So this is where we seek to focus our efforts. And in our partnership with MBDA, my goal is to operate at my comparative advantage is to provide access. Provide access to procurement-ready firms. What we're going to be doing, in fact, what we have initiated here, and we're going to be executing over the next 60 days, is a series of what we call opportunity showcases, which are essentially direct access events where procurement decision makers from the VA lay out, sit down with small businesses, veteran-owned small businesses primarily, lay out their requirements, and then get an opportunity to hear from those small businesses what their capabilities are and how they can help that procurement decision maker reach his requirements. That's going to be a very important element of their market research. Because my piece, MBDA's piece, the PTAX piece is, okay, if you will bring me your, I sat down with the senior executives in the VA and said, if you'll bring me your procurement decision makers, I will bring you capable small businesses. Okay? If I fail in my part of that mission, I won't get them back. And that's a very important element, is everyone wants to start with access. Oh yeah, I've started my small business last week, and now I want a federal contract, and now I want you to hook me up with a procurement decision maker. And my answer is no. Because if you're not procurement ready, and you haven't thought about that, if you're not ready for prime time, and I hook you up with a procurement decision maker, now I've not only done damage to your future opportunities, because they won't see you again. I will tell you, you got one shot with a customer. If they walk away saying, this wasted my time, you're going to be in a special list. And that's not the list that they have about people they want to see again. Okay? So you want to make sure when you hit prime time that you are ready. If you're ready, then my goal is to put you in front of procurement decision makers, which we're going to do with this series of meetings. One of the elements we do with Access is our approach is you earn a one-on-one. Because again, our view is I need to impress upon the procurement decision makers that your category is relevant to them. So what's my goal? That they set it aside to give small businesses the opportunity to compete with each other. Okay? And that's where you want to be. So what you're going to run into is situations where you go in and you talk to somebody and you've impressed them. You've gotten over the awareness hurdle, you've gotten over the risk mitigation hurdle, you've gotten over the access hurdle. And the words you want to hear by the end of that meeting is, I love your show, babe. And then I will tell you that 93.4% of the time, the next question out of their mouth is going to, if you have impressed them and you've made it through all of these hurdles, is how do I get to you? And if you tell them, wow, you need to get to me through a open market competition, the procurement decision maker sits there and starts thinking, they stop listening to you, by the way, at this point. They're thinking, time, how long is it going to take? What's the level of effort for the acquisition? Because in my experience, in many cases with a procurement decision maker, program managers want it done. They take a long time. We take a long time to figure out what it is we want to do. Once we got that figured out, you and I want it done tomorrow. It took me a year to figure it out. And I sent out a kind of a fuzzy RFI, and I sent out a different fuzzy RFI, and finally I get to a place where I think I know what I want to do and who I want to do it with, and then I want it done immediately. And you tell them, this is open market competition. That's called pushing the hard button. What people like to do is push the easy button. And as a small business, what you need to focus on is how do I enable that procurement decision maker to push the easy button? Because particularly contracting officers, particularly fourth quarter of the year, my department's got to move $5 billion in the next 60 days. And if you're hard and you're small, guess where you go on the pile? At the bottom. And that is not where you want to be, okay? So by the way, I mentioned the simplified acquisition threshold category. Do not press that policy or expect much of that in the last 60 days of the fiscal year. Why? Quite frankly, procurement decision makers are moving big money fast, okay? So timing is important. But you got 10 months, other months. So procurement mechanism. This is another area where small businesses have a lot of trouble because they don't have a mechanism by which to get to you. That is why simplified acquisition threshold purchases are so important, because that's an easy button. I'll give you some more secret sauce. When you find a decision maker, you find them with a requirement, what you want to do is offer them a white paper. What's a white paper? It's a paper with no headings on it. It's an idea paper. And you give that to that procurement decision maker, and they go, wow, this is interesting stuff. This is what you have. They're going to tell you one of three things. You hit it on the head. This is what I needed. That's what you want to hear. Or you're going to get told, man, you completely missed it. And I would tell you, you want to hear that on your white paper, not on your proposal. Third, you're going to hear, I'm not interested. Now, it's not what you want to hear, but that's still good news because then you can move on, okay? Or you can do the follow-up conversation. How did I miss it? What are you not interested by? What would you be interested in? And I'll give you a tip. Do not ask a procurement decision maker, what are your requirements? What do you need? Because the minute you say that to a procurement decision maker, what they conclude is you don't know me. You haven't done your due diligence. You haven't done the kind of homework that demonstrates you're ready to do business with me. Now, it may be unfair. It may be all wet. But that's the reality. They have stopped listening. By the way, when I was first doing business development at a small business, I say, what are your needs? So, let me help you out with your needs. And I sort of kept casual track of how well that worked. And I got to tell you, it didn't work worth a flip, okay? Because the customer said, why would I talk to you? Why would I educate you about my problem? Now, what I found much more effective, and I think you'll find effective, let's talk about problems. And that's why when you're at a conference where it's a substantive conference where they're there to learn, you start the conversation about problems. You get them talking. At that point in time, you want to maximize listening, minimize talking, until they say something that triggers in you that they got a need. You drill in on a need, and then you're offering them a solution. Now you have their attention. Then you provide them the white paper. That is not an unsolicited proposal. And some people will tell you who don't know procurement will say, wait a minute, you can't offer them a white paper. Oh, yes, you can. The federal government is always interested in having solutions to their problems. Do not say the word unsolicited proposal. Why? The percentage of unsolicited proposals that turn into successful procurements in the VA is somewhere around 0. Maybe 0.1%. And the reason for that is go look at the federal acquisition regulations on what the requirements are for the government to consider an unsolicited proposal. That's called the hard button. Remember what I talked about, you don't want to hit the hard button, okay? You can offer an idea, a white paper. Now, some of you here may say, well, I don't want to give up my idea to the federal government. Well, okay. And go find another customer you're comfortable giving up your ideas to. Now, I've heard small business, and I consider myself, is that federal government guy going to take my idea and give it to his buddy or her buddy? And I will tell you, when I came into the federal government 3 years ago, I was very, I wanted to know that because I was suspicious sometimes. Well, what I found is if I'm suspicious about it with a particular procurement decision maker, don't do business with them because you can't trust them. But what I found by and large, people are good human beings. Remember that program manager, that CEO wants to get it done. Somebody gives them a good idea. What are they going to do? Wow, I'm now aware of them. They got good ideas. They said something I'm interested in. They've mitigated the risk. Do you think they're going to want to do business with you? No, they want to give it to somebody they don't know. I don't think so. Okay? So you've now given them an idea, and if you keep it below the simplified acquisition threshold, it's still simple. Now here's another thing that's counterintuitive. Give them two competitors. Identify for them two firms who do what it is you do. The federal government mitigates risk through competition. Okay, you're a contractor. You give them a price for your white paper. No matter what price you give them, they go, is this really the real price? Or are they taking me to the cleaners? Competition is the way the federal government has a very difficult time, in many cases, unless you're selling them a commodity, determining what the right price is. I'll let you peek behind the curtain. One of the things the federal government does least well, in my experience, and this is my experience, there's probably a lot of guys out there that do it really great, but I'm increasing my experience every day, and I've yet to run into it, which is doing what they call an independent government cost estimate. That's tough stuff. And program managers are trying to get a job done. They don't know how much it's going to cost. They now know what the requirement is, but they're not going to spend 6 months trying to figure out what it's going to cost. Some do, and it varies from place to place. But I'll tell you, a simple way to do it is bring them a couple of competitors. Now they can compete it. Now they can make a price determination. Now, you can bring them a competitor who's lean and mean and does everything you do as well as you do it cheaper. That would be one strategy. I'll leave it at that. Okay. I will tell you that in the simplified acquisition threshold, I put my program manager hat on. So I got three companies. I go out. I've got to make it. I want to have competition, and I get a response that says, "Okay." Somebody bids $149,000. Somebody bids $250,000. Somebody bids $350,000. What do I conclude? Wow, I'm getting a pretty good deal for $150,000. Okay, so all I'm saying is, remember, what's counterintuitive here? If you say to somebody, "I'm the only firm that can do this," you better be the only firm in the world that can do it, and you better be so cutting edge, so bleeding edge, that it's obvious to that customer that nobody else can do it. And if that's the case, go work for DARPA. Why? Because DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, they're the ones who do bleeding edge in the federal government. VA, we don't do bleeding edge. If you're that unique and you're that far out there, remember I talked about risk aversion? There's a technology risk deal. So you come with an idea, you come with other people who are credible, so people can do competition. Now you've got a simple procurement mechanism. Now, there's other procurement mechanisms that are important to be on. As you start to do business with the federal government, you need to think about federal supply schedules. And I know people have they've told you different things. The first thing you do is don't get on a federal supply schedule. You got to get established. The nature of the federal supply schedule, they want you to be in business. But at some point, they're important because they help hit the easy button. If I'm going to go on a federal supply schedule purchase, all I got to do is I got to identify 3 companies. It's really 2, but 3 is a good safety margin. 3 companies on that supply schedule that I believe, through my market research, can do this business. I can send out a procurement to those 3 companies. I don't send it to everybody on the federal supply schedule. I don't have to put it on FBO. I can send it to 3 companies. Secret sauce, I don't have to get 3 proposals. I just have to have sent it to create the competition. Okay? Think easy button. Think being on a vehicle where they can hit the easy button. You know what? One of the things that scares the heck out of a program manager and a contracting officer? Too much competition. I worked for an organization that did international development. I was in Kazakhstan. I was at the embassy. We did a lot of work for USAID, and the USAID program manager, I was there visiting about a project we had working, and he called me in his office and says, Tom, I want you to see this. They had just put out a proposal. It was one that he was able to show me because we hadn't bid on this proposal. I walked into his office. He showed me a stack of proposals about 3.5 feet high. This was a serious water project. Each proposal was, 40, 50, 60 pages, 3.5 feet, linear feet of proposals to read. What's the FAR require? These proposals come in, you got to read them all. And he had set this up as a best value proposition, and he's going, Tom, what have I done to myself? Now, what ends up happening, the reality today that you have to deal with is too much competition is not viewed as a good thing. Nobody wants to read 50 proposals. So you need to give to that procurement decision maker a way to get competition, but help them think through not getting too much competition. And that's where things like schedules, things like SAT, where they don't have to go out the whole world. Okay? So procurement mechanism is key. Don't rely on the procurement decision maker to figure that out for you. You need to bring that to the table. Now, once they're aware of you, once they think you're a low-risk solution, once you've had access, then they're going to be more interested in working a little harder to keep you in the game. But if you haven't passed those other hurdles and you haven't demonstrated those things through performance, you've got to make sure it's easy on them. One of the things that we're working on at the VA is to make sure that we are pursuing procurement vehicles that have access for small business. But I got to tell you, it is very, very tough sledding. One of the realities we're all facing is the fact with the push toward strategic sourcing, which is about cost savings in terms of quantities of scale, but it's also about cost savings and acquisition costs. If I'm going to have to deal with protests, and rather than doing 100 small acquisitions, if I can do one big one, I mean, some people win big. Okay, I'm okay with that. As long as they can do the job. I don't have to keep pushing procurements out there. So it's a very important, these procurement vehicles are very tough to get procurement vehicles that a lot of small businesses are on. And that's why I say you want to make it in the interests of the program decision maker to be able to go open market with you if that's necessary with a set aside based on debt. And they will not do that without knowing you, without having confidence in you, and that normally means you have to demonstrate performance. And that's why I keep going back to this sad thing. Now, I got to tell you, I'm going to be, I promise truth as I know it. I didn't promise to come in here and make you feel good, okay? But I promise you truth as I know it. One of the biggest problems I'm finding right now is SAT isn't necessarily SAT. It's not necessarily simple. And that's one of the things that I'm working on at the VA is how do I truly make sure the simplified acquisition threshold purchases are simple to do. Because if they're not easy, they don't get done. The last piece here, and I'll speak pretty shortly because it's kind of self-explanatory, but again, people miss it. There's an old saying in business school that it's 10 times more difficult to get a new customer as it is to keep an old customer. But we all get caught up in business development, and we neglect our current customers to go find new ones. Particularly you in small business, particularly if you're the owner, you're the CEO, you're out there constantly hustling for business. I get that. But one of the things that makes small businesses competitive, one of the things that I sell with regards to small business is the fact that small businesses are more responsive, they're more flexible, they're more versatile, they're more customer service oriented. And I can speak from experience. And when I've had a problem with a small business doing projects for me, when I have a problem, I call the CEO. Or I call the program manager. In almost every case, the next morning, the CEO is sitting in my office. Not the program manager, not the vice president, not the executive vice president, not the senior program manager, the CEO. And I would advise you, when it comes to performance, play to your strengths. If you ever have any problem, any hint of a problem on performance, get your chief executive officer in the office of your customer. Demonstrate to them that you can bring something that do you think, I won't use the name of any big business because this is a negative statement. Do you think that any large business, the CEO, is going to walk into a customer's office over $1 million contract, a $500,000 contract, a $10 million contract? No. So play to your strengths. Play to your strengths. Because if your CEO doesn't show up in that office, making a call the next day, you've just done yourself a huge disservice. Because there's an expectation. In part, I'm creating that expectation every time I talk to procurement decision makers. I say, you want customer service, you're going to get it from a small business because you are important to that small business. So if you're running a small business, show up. Half of dealing with a customer is showing up. And then be prepared to make the decisions that need to be made to get that customer back on track. Because unlike a large business, you come in to the VA and you screw up, you're toast. Because you don't have 100 past performances. You don't have lots of things that you can use. And the next procurement at the VA, they're going to want to know, how'd you do in the VA? And if the answer to that question isn't good, then you have a serious problem. Now, I'll give you a heads up. This is coming. This is what's coming. There's a thing called CPARS, and I should always write down what that means. Okay? It doesn't really matter what it means. It's the contract performance assessment, something or other, something. Basically, let me put it in technical terms. That's where we grade contractors. Okay? Historically, BMs, cores, the cores was supposed to input the data. Historically, they haven't used it. Why? Because it was a pain. Now there's a lot of heat. One of the latest silver bullets in government contracting is make sure you use CPARS. That's good for you because if you do good work, you want to get graded. If you're not doing such good work, you don't want to get graded. The thing about CPARS is, if I give you a negative CPARS rating, then I have to notify you, I have to justify it, and hit the hard button. I don't like to do that. So what does that mean? You run the risk that everybody's satisfactory. That's not a good place to be. Okay? But CPARS is coming. We now measure input to CPARS. Are people, inputting the data? Go Google it. Go figure out what it is and use it. If you're doing a great job for your customer, you want to make sure that they're putting your CPARS rating into that system. Because as we do sources sought now, that is becoming a routine thing. And that's something that 2 years ago in the VA, people didn't look at CPARS. So they said there was nothing there. But now there's a lot of attention to that. You want that good CPARS rating, okay? And I will tell you, while, yes, a CPARS rating on a $100 million contract is not the same as a CPARS rating on a $100,000 contract, but it's not 1,000 times different. What you want, people, they go fast. Oh, wow, excellent rating on CPARS. They don't sit there and discount it because it's a small contract. They say, this guy came in, or this woman came in and did a good job. What tends to happen is you're a small business. You're happy to get the work. You're doing good work. And you're a little nervous about telling the Corps, hey, if I did great work for you, I gave you $200,000 worth of work for $100,000 bucks. Hey, I'm looking for you to tell somebody about it. And by and large, my experience, and I say this, I mean, I've gone and talked out to dozens of, they're happy to do it. But you know what's the first thing you're going to do? They're going to say CPARS. What does that stand for? And you're going to say, crap. Tom Leney didn't tell me what it stood for. This is a test in your procurement readiness. Go out and Google it. Be able to explain it to the PM. Be able to explain to your core how they do it. And if you don't know, ask the people at the Federal Procurement Center, ask the people at the PTAC. If they don't know, they will figure it out and they will tell you. And this is part of educating your customer. No, you shouldn't have to do it, but unfortunately, you do. Okay? Because you get that excellent CPARS rating, that's what the whole performance thing benefits you. Okay? So, I've taken a long time with this. Hopefully you're finding in this something useful that you can take away. Some of these things I wish they weren't, but they are. And if I learned anything when I was in small business, I had to deal with what is. I couldn't live in a world of what I wanted it to be or what it should be. I had to live in a world of what is. And when you come into this market space, I guess I would give you Leney's first law: know the rules, play the rules. If you don't know the rules, don't expect your customer will know the rules. And if they don't know the rules, they default to the hardest. They default to believing it's hard, and they don't want to go there. Now, let me go back to procurement readiness, and I'll tell you just a couple of important things here. We're not in the business of helping you get procurement ready. I'd love to, but there are people out there who do that a lot better than I do. First on the list is the MBDA business centers. So we're taking a new approach. We're focusing on our comparative advantages as access, and I'm relying on the MBDAs, the PTACs, the SBA programs, the SBDCs, SCORE, VSOs, people who are working with small businesses to bring me procurement-ready businesses. Because I'll give you the rest of the secret sauce. I'm going to bring PDMs to these events, and what I want, what you want, what I know MBDA wants, is they want to get up from the table after sitting down with you and some of your small business colleagues and say, that was worth my time. At our National Veterans Engagement, we bring over 300 procurement decision makers. And every one of them walks away from that 3-day event and says, hey, I didn't meet anybody. I have to drag them kicking and screaming back. And it's very, very tough. So I guess the takeaway here, and I realize I don't need to press this because you guys are already working with MBDA. But one of the regrets I had is when I was in small business, I didn't reach out to these resources. MBDA, PTACs, a wonderful resource. They know the rules. They've been there. They've been in the belly of the beast. If you're not getting advice from these people, you're missing a great opportunity. SCORE, that's a service corps of retired executives. You want to get some help? These guys have been there. They've done it. Many have been very successful. Now they're retired. They give back. If you don't ask, they won't help you because they don't know about you. What do we do at the VA? In order to help you find some of these resources, we've established what we call the Veteran Entrepreneurship Port. For those of you who aren't vets, I'll give you a secret sauce. We don't check your DD-214 before we let you into the port, okay? And that is a place where we are in partnership with Business USA. Our goal is to identify places that help small businesses get procurement ready. We also have links to all of the departments and all of, the how to do business stuff. The second piece for you veterans, if you want to do business with the VA, to be procurement ready, you have to be verified. And, I have spent 3 years in the trenches of verification. Verification is a requirement, is a legislative requirement to participate in in our Veterans First program. It's related only to the VA. It enables us to allow a firm to receive set-asides, veteran-owned small business set-asides from the VA. Why is that important? $3.9 billion last year went to veteran-owned small businesses under this program. Okay? How do you get verified? First step is to go to the Center for Veteran Verification and Evaluation. And on our vetbiz.gov, gives you all the instructions on how to be verified. First step in verification, get a counselor. Go to our website. We have almost 300 counselors. They're free. Secret sauce: do not pay for somebody to help you get verified. You don't need to. These counselors come out of the P-Tax. Okay, you're coming in to get verified. Hi, now met a counselor. They helped you. They gave you good stuff on verification. Maybe they're going to give you good stuff on procurement in the federal market space. Okay, but you got to be verified. I will tell you right now, if you're a veteran-owned small business, I put you in front. In fact, I won't put you in front of a VA procurement decision maker if you're not verified. Why? Not because I don't like you, not because I'm mean, but because the minute you tell them you're a veteran-owned small business and they know you're not verified, their eyes will glaze over and they will not hear another word you say because they cannot do business with you. Or why would they do business with you? Because what procurement decision makers want to get, if they're going to take the risk, they're going to do the extra work to go with a small business. You know what? One of the things they want, first thing they want is mission accomplishment, and that through your performance. But you know what they also want? They want credit. Okay, that's not bad. It's not evil. It's not wrong. It's normal. I want credit. So if I can do business with your firm versus your firm, and I'm going to get credit from yours, but not yours, who am I going to do business with, all things being equal? Now, another piece of secret sauce. If you're a women-owned small business, and you're a vet, and you work out of a hub zone, you're what I call a threefer. Something to note. That program manager, that contracting officer who's going to get evaluated on his ability, her ability to meet socioeconomic goals is going to get credit, full credit for each one of those categories. Now, again, it seems blind. It's actually not obvious. And no one can send out a procurement notice that says, we only want threefers to participate. No one gives explicit evaluation credit for being multiple categories of small business. You didn't hear me? I'm not saying that. Stop and think about, just theoretically speaking, hypothetically speaking, if I can get 3 times the credit, if I can get 3 times gas points on my, credit card, do I go with a credit card that gives me 3 times the gas points, or do I stick with a credit card that gives me 1 time the gas points? Just a thought for you, okay? Direct access program. Now let me talk about something that's of immediate interest to you guys, that we're working with MBDA and some other organizations like PTAC. We have reached out to our Office of Information Technology and some of our medical services program offices. And over the course of the next 60 days, we're going to be co-hosting with MBDA and PTAC and some others, some direct access events. They're going to be held primarily here in Washington, D.C. We will be bringing procurement decision makers, and as we identify the procurement decision maker over the next couple of weeks, we'll be passing them on to Joe and the other members of the other MBDA staff. We're asking them to identify procurement-ready firms. We're asking them to invite those firms to this event, and so I can sit them down with procurement decision makers. Why? Because I want them to get up and walk away from that event saying, oh, this is worth my time. Rather than having them come to you, we're going to have you come to them. Why? Because I want them to hit the easy button. I want to make it easy for them to become aware of you, easy for them to provide you access, and I'm expecting that the imprimatur of MBDA is going to help lower their perceived risk. Now, we in the federal government don't exclude. But if you're listening to me today and you don't take anything else away, remember what I said about you got one shot. And your one shot affects other small businesses. So MBDA isn't going to say you can't do this, but they're going to advise you. If they don't think you're ready, my advice to you is pay attention. They're saying it for a reason. I will flat tell you, my experience over the last 2 years working with Joe and other MBDA staff, they care about your success. They probably don't tell you this, but I'll tell you, they get graded based on your success. If you fail, they fail. So if they say you're not ready, and we don't suggest you sit down and participate in their event, pay attention. The question you need to ask back to them is, okay, what do I need to do to get to that place where you're going to send my name in to talk to these people? Okay? So pay attention, challenge them, okay? If you don't think I'm ready, what do I need to do? Because I want to sit down compatible firms that are ready, so that they can walk away thinking, okay, this is someone I want to do business with. Okay? Like I say, you'll be getting information from. We aren't going to be putting these on FBO because they're co-sponsored events. We're doing these with our partners, and so you should hopefully, if you're in the IT space, and if you're in some of the medical services space, we're going to be doing these things over the next, between now and the 30th of September. Why the 30th of September? Because on the 9th through the 11th of December, we'll be holding our 4th annual National Veterans Small Business Engagement. It's the first engagement. We've had 3 previous National Small Business Conferences. We've changed the name because we're not doing a conference. This isn't a typical conference. The whole purpose of this event is to provide access for veteran-owned small businesses to procurement decision makers. Okay? So this isn't you sitting in a room with 500 of your closest friends, listening to some senior executive or some government official talk about how to do business with a VA. Frankly, if you spend any time at a session on how to do business with the VA, you weren't ready to go to that event. Because what you want to spend all your time doing is connecting with procurement decision makers. We will have 3,000 activities over 3 days. What's the idea? The purpose of 3 days is to give you multiple opportunities to connect. I know, or I hope that most of you understand this already. You do not connect, you do not gain access by handing somebody your business card by asking them a question at the end of a lecture. Unless you're very, very good. Okay? Because you have about 15 seconds to convince them that they really are going to want to write something on the back of the card and talk to you again. That's a very tough bar to beat. The goal of the National Veterans Small Business Engagement is you get a chance to listen to somebody's business requirement session, ask questions, give me your card. You get a chance to sit down with them with 3 of your competitors at a networking roundtable, and you get a chance to talk to them about your capabilities. Secret sauce. If you do not have a 1-minute elevator speech that is customized to the customer you're talking about, that explains the core competencies of your firm, you're not ready. You're not ready to talk to a customer. Because you've got about 1 minute to convince a customer who doesn't know you that he or she should keep listening. The other thing we hosted this conference, this engagement, we call it Dining with Decision Makers. Because I got to tell you, when I was in business, I never really did business with anybody I didn't break bread with. So we have 3 plenary sessions. We have a speaker. Speaker is background noise. The real purpose of those sessions, where we put 5,000 people in a room, is the fact that each table is hosted by a procurement decision maker, and you know where they are, you know who's going to be there, so you can have lunch with them. Informal dialogue over a meal. We have receptions. Why? So you can have a beverage of your choice with them, or beverage of their choice with them. Okay? The idea is, in the course of 3 days, you begin to build the relationship you need to have in order to do business. It gets you over the awareness hurdle, gets you over the risk hurdle, gets you over the access hurdle. Okay? And remember, you go down to that conference and do business, and there are people who've done tremendous. 23% of the people who came to Detroit, we polled, surveyed everybody afterwards, walked away or ended up within a year with a procurement. Why? Because if you don't have access, you don't do business. And people like to say, okay, we go to great lengths to make the playing field level, et cetera, et cetera. But I guess the thing I would bring to you today is that people do business with people that they know. And I just ask you, who do you do business with? Some small business person walks up to you and says, I want to partner with you. You're building a team to go after a procurement because you got a real opportunity. They say, I want to be on your team. Now you are a procurement decision maker. You're the buyer. So take what you're thinking and remember that somebody else is thinking that about you. And all the things that you go through, they're going to go through. You're going to walk right through those 5 things, aren't you? If you don't know who they are, they ain't going to talk to you. If you view them as high risk, they ain't going to talk. They ain't going to work with you. If they don't get access to you, they just sent you their capability statement. You're not going to do business with them. Okay. So this event is about taking the time to build a relationship. And I'll tell you, I've now done 3. Vast change of what this used to be. Because what we've realized, this is about connecting. And I've seen small business who came there, and first of all, they wanted to talk to me. I'm like, are you crazy? I bring 350 procurement decision makers. You want to talk to me? Unless you're talking to me in my program manager hat, you're wasting your time. Go talk to the right people. Second thing is that while we're going to have learning sessions, that's secondary. Why would you come to the conference? To get access. You can get training in a lot of other places. Now, we're going to have some learning sessions there, but they're designed to be guys that are already doing business, ready to do business. So maybe it's a conversation about a particular federal supply schedule so you can help you determine, is this the one I want to be on? Because it's an investment. The key to this whole thing is access, what it's all about. Now, a couple things that we're doing. We're bringing commercial buyers. In Detroit, we brought the big 3 automakers. That worked pretty well. In St. Louis last year, we had about 30 major firms that are looking to contract with veteran-owned small businesses. Not to be subs on their federal proposals. It's like AT&T. They build cell towers. They clean buildings. They cut the grass. They do repairs and maintenance. They do all those things. And they're looking for, AT&T is committed to $900 million a year with veteran-owned small business. They're coming to the conference, looking to do business. We have brought them because when I was in small business and I worked for government contractors, we wanted to have a commercial practice. So it's an opportunity to meet with these buyers from major commercial organizations. Last thing there is important contacts. I put that up here. You've got it. I'm not going to explain it because if you can't figure out how to get to me, you're probably not ready to do business with my agency. Okay. Questions? I guess it's time for questions. So, Joe, I'm going to I've talked a long time.
Okay.
Like I've lost track of how long I talked.
That's quite all right. It was really useful information. If anyone on the line would like to ask a question, go ahead and unmute your phone and go ahead and ask questions. And we also have some people in the room that might have questions, and we had a few people that have sent us messages, their emails or text messages with questions. So does anyone on the line have a question they'd like to ask?
Yes, I have a question. This is Rob Bailey.
Okay. Okay, Rob.
Yes. The upcoming showcase that was mentioned. How do we find out more information about that? Just to speak very confidently, I know I'm procurement ready, and that engagement sounds very enticing, so I was just trying to follow up on information about that.
You'll hear about it through MBDA, and what I hope is that your MBDA counselor also thinks you're procurement ready. By the way, if you and they disagree, my advice, to be quite candid, is listen to them.
Yes, sir. Understand. And one last question as a follow-up. In regards to your procurement vehicles, and for example, T4, are you looking at, as far as your acquisition strategy, are you looking at on-ramping other small service-disabled veterans or having an on-ramping window to some of those large IDIQs that currently exist within the VA today?
Well, one, I can't talk about acquisition strategy. However, I will tell you that we are very concerned about generating procurement vehicles, particularly the large indefinite quantity contracts that have a very small number of prime contractors. And so what we're examining is how do we revise those procurement vehicles like T4, and we're now building T4 next generation, and looking at how do we provide access to more companies. One thing I didn't really talk about today is subcontracting. And the reason I really didn't go into that too much today, I used to have a sign above my desk when I ran a small business that it sucks to sub. Okay, I realize, please, I hope I'm not offending anybody using that terminology. It's kind of a technical term. But lots of people like to tell you contracting is the way, and unfortunately it is. But it is a whole world of issues I encourage you to talk to your MBDA counselor about, because sometimes the biggest challenge in subcontracting is your relationship with your prime contractor. And I would assert to you all and argue to you all, when you're a prime contractor, remember that. And I think there is really good space in the federal market space for good primes who take care of their subs. And I'll tell you where we are going. The federal government has not wrapped its arms currently around subcontracting effectively. And we take solace in the fact that we don't have privity of contract to subcontractors. But there's a lot of interest, and I think we're starting to see some momentum build to really begin to have a lot better visibility on what's going on with subcontractors. So in fact, we can make it useful to be a subcontractor. That's more than you asked.
For anyone
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And anyone ask? Oh, and sir, can you tell us the name of your company, and also is your company small business, service disabled, veteran-owned small business, veteran-owned small business, et cetera?
Was that question directed to me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm a service disabled, veteran-owned small business. And what was the other?
And the name of your company?
It's Bailey Information Technology Consultants.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure Mr. Leney remembers the name of your company when that proposal comes across his desk for approval.
I appreciate. I met him in person actually at a White House event, so he just doesn't remember me by voice, but I'm sure he will in person.
Okay, thank you. And anyone who has a question, please identify the name of your company. Just in just a couple words, what do you do, and what socioeconomic category does your company fall into? Thank you. Next question.
Yes, this is Edie.
Go ahead, Edie.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Okay, this is Edie Haney. I'm with Pixart Technologies and Soga Data Centers, and we are a service disabled veteran and small business.
Thank you for
one
your
thing
service.
I'd be interested. Thank you so much. One thing I'd be interested in. You mentioned the event, and I think that's a fantastic opportunity, and I appreciate you introducing us to that event, I guess. Another thing you mentioned were the industry conferences for different decision makers, and I just wondered if you could give us, maybe elaborate a little bit on where we might look for those industry conferences that program managers would attend, or decision makers.
Edie, I'm really glad you asked that question. And I'm glad you asked the question because I don't have a good answer for it. But
that is always the problem.
No, I have my colleague Michelle Prince here, who just took note of that question, and she also is taking note of the fact that I have a crappy answer for it, and so we're going to get a good answer. The general answer to your question is to look at the industry sector that your customers are in, and go to industry events. Okay, events designed to educate people about the industry. Because one of the things that federal procurement decision makers are always trying to do, remember, they're trying to figure it out. They're trying to get it right. So they're going out there. They go to these conferences. They like to go to the conferences, and that's the way that they learn. Okay, they don't go to grad school necessarily. They're already in the government. They already got a job. So they go to industry conferences where they're doing business, and those are the places where they're open. Now the problem is, it's not a particularly efficient way to connect with them. I tell a story. I went to a small business conference once. I had one target that I wanted to meet. I'd never met the person before. It was a cold call. I spent 2.5 hours at the registration area. I found out where his name tag was. I stalked him. I spent 2.5 hours waiting for that guy to show up. When he showed up and picked up his registration badge, walked away from the counter, I followed him. And he went to Starbucks, or it wasn't a Starbucks, it was a local coffee thing there in the convention center. He got in line. I got in line behind him. And when he, went to order his coffee, I kind of bumped him and said, "Oh, you're so-and-so. Oh, you know what? I'm Tom Leney, yada, 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 yada. And I understand that you got this problem." He goes, "Yeah, I'm really." I said, "Well, you know what? You got a minute? You got your cup of coffee?" I got my cup of coffee. Okay? And we had a conversation. Now, the problem is that's pretty inefficient. Telling me to do this conference, you're going to have to invest time. Like I say, awareness, you got to be there. Okay? You got to be there, ready to do business. And I had 1 minute to convince this guy to have coffee with me. Now, it so happened on that one to work. Got down, had coffee. I'm pleased with about 9 months later, we ended up with a contract. We were able to get through those hurdles. But I hated that idea. And for those of you who want to turn me into the Metropolitan Police for stalking, please don't. Okay, it was all, in good faith. But that's not very efficient. That's why at our conference we're trying to create those opportunities to connect. Now, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to commit to this publicly. We're going to add to our Veteran Entrepreneurship Portal, we're going to start polling our procurement decision makers to find out what conferences they go to. And we'll post it. So have you got that, Michelle? Okay. It's big promises like the public, but that was a good idea that I was about to think about. I was seconds away from that idea. Thank you for asking the question. I will tell you there is a problem, though. The conference attendance, I think at the VA has gone down the last year or so by about 80%. Why? There's been a lot of congressional questioning about, why are feds going to conferences? They presume that, well, I won't say anything about what I think the Congress is presuming. But all I can say is attendance at conferences has really gone down, which is too bad, because those are great places to meet.
Can I follow up with a question? You mentioned that you talked to a particular person, and do you think that program managers are the identification of program managers in our specific target areas are really the decision makers we need to be targeting?
Yes.
Okay.
The reason you want to talk to program managers, you want to talk to the people who have the needs. Okay? Remember, what's the focus of a contracting officer? How and when they have a job to move procurements. Okay? They want to be, you know who their customers are? Program managers. So you want to be responsive. You want to be talking to a program manager who's going to that CEO to say, "Wow, I really like ABC Incorporated. I think it would really be cool if they could compete on this. And what do you think the contracting officer is going to do? Wow, small business. They think they're competent and capable. By the way, they have a couple of others they think are competent and capable. Maybe that program manager isn't going to bust my chops if I ask him to set this aside. He wants to set it aside. Bam, easy button." Okay.
So,
thank you.
All right. Mr. Leney, this is Rob Bailey again. While there's a pause, I guess, people thinking. Going back to your chart where you referenced the NAICS Code 541, and I do really appreciate your acquisition strategy in regards to the SAPs, and that's been part of my strategy. I'm currently teamed with several large prime contractors as part of my development in getting into the government contracting realm. With that being said, within the VA, when I was at the last conference in St. Louis, the VA seemed to have rolled up a lot of their IT portfolio under one director, if you will, and one time it was Stan Lowe. I don't know if that's still the case. And if that in fact is true, most of their focus was on 2 IDIQs, which, you know, really knocked me out, me particularly, or any other small business trying to really get in. With that being said, though, out of that amount of money that, you know, has been averaged out, is there really an opportunity outside of those 2 large IDIQs for IT professional services? I guess, you know, for me, I'm in IT professional service, software development, system engineering, so that's really key to my offering to the VA. I was trying to figure out, because I'm not on T4 or one of the other acquisitions.
The reality is, in the NAICS in the IT services world, we are pumping over 50% of our procurements through T4. And it already has 15 primes. That's not really going to, we onboarded 1 prime last year. The onboarding is essentially immaterial. And unfortunately, that has greatly restricted opportunities for small businesses. We are now looking at T4 next generation, and one of the objectives of my office is to help the Technical Acquisition Center and the Office of Information Technology rethink that procurement vehicle. And I make no promises. Obviously, I can't talk about that in any degree of specificity, but I will tell you, yes, right now a significant amount of our IT work goes in. However, having said that, that's the bad news. Here's the good news. One of the reasons people go through T4 is because they think it's the easy button. If I were in the IT services space, and that's where I came out of, I would be, and I was on Schedule 70, if I have a customer or a potential customer, and I can tell them, give them an easy solution, which is, here's 3 companies, they're on Schedule 70, and advocate putting it through a federal supply schedule, we are expanding our use of the federal supply schedules because they are also easy. One of the things that we are making the case for, and this is again where program managers are so important. Remember, that question you want to get to. I love your show, babe. How do I get to you? If you're not on T4, okay, but you're on Schedule 70, that becomes a way to get to you. And if that program manager wants to get to you, then they're going to be pressuring the contracting officer to use the vehicle that gets to you. But if your only solution is open market competition, there'll be tremendous pressure to go to T4, especially since more than 60% of the T4 acquisitions are going to service-disabled veteran-owned small business primes, of which there are 7. So I don't have a great positive answer that wow, there's big changes afoot. They're going to change that in a major way, but this is something we are spending time and energy on, and I don't know what the outcome is. And if I did, I couldn't tell you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hi, this is Lori Cole from the Elevator Consultants, and we are a minority small business, women-owned business. And my question is,
what type of work do you do, Lori?
We're elevator consultants. So we write specifications for modernization, for maintenance specs. We go in and we audit the elevators that are currently under service. People, for a good term, people call us the elevator police. So we actually work for our clients to make sure that they're receiving the services that they're paying for, as well as making sure that it's all code compliant. So we've done some work for GSA, and we've been on some VA projects as well. We're not a veteran company, although we hire veterans. My dad's a VA veteran, so something we take personally in our company. But and so what we've done is it seems like every time we get an opportunity through someone that has an IDIQ, they typically hire an A&E firm. And in these cases that the projects we've done, in almost 95% of the time, we're doing almost 100% of the work. And what happens is we found that specifically with the VAs, they go to the IDIQs and they say, okay, we have some elevator work. Go ahead and look for someone, and then they go out and find their team, and then we bid on it. But it's not, in our projects, you're not required to do any, drawings or any professional signatures have to be signed off on them. We are qualified elevator inspectors. We have all the credentials that we need to have. But my question is kind of twofold. One is, we're not on the schedule, working on getting in the schedule. We're very close to getting on the GSA schedule. So I wanted to find out the advantage of doing that with working with the VA hospitals. And the VA has a ton of work that they would use consultants for as well. So I wanted to know how to work that. And also we're very niche on the schedule. Once we get on the schedule, there'll only be like 3 firms that are actually do consulting, elevator consulting type work that we do. We are not an elevator maintenance company. We don't install elevators. We project manage the whole process to get those elevators if you're doing a modernization. And we do maintenance work. We check on the maintenance work or write the specification to make sure that you're getting the maintenance that the location needs. So those are kind of my questions.
So I think your question is, should you get on a schedule?
Should I get on a schedule? Yes.
Yes. And my answer is yes. If you qualify for the schedule, because one of the easy buttons that a contracting officer or program manager can do is if people are on a schedule, they are quasi pre-qualified, okay? And all I need to do is find 3 firms on the schedule, and for set-asides 2 or more. But I use 3 consistently because you don't want to go with 2 and find out one of them drops out. You got 3 firms. They can then send that to those 3 firms on the schedule. It gets at the problem of too many. Do you want to go open market where you could have 100 proposals, 20 proposals? B, so they get the competition, and it's straightforward. The other thing I would add, in general for everybody, you got to educate your program managers. I will tell you, if I'm paying for architecture and engineering services, and I'm paying certifications and professional engineers, et cetera, in an area where I don't need it, which means I'm paying an extra price. If you're doing all the work, that means somebody's slapping overhead and management fees and all that on your work. So the important thing here is, part of this in general, is whatever field you're in, educate your customers to what they need to do business, because sometimes they won't know. They take the risk-averse approach. Man, I better get an A&E firm in here who's got a professional engineer, like blah, blah, blah. If they don't need it and they can get quality work cheaper, that's a good piece of education. Third, I'm going to give you a secret sauce. Okay? And I'm going to take off my government hat. I'm going to put on my small business hat. Okay? So this is not the VA. This is Tom Leney. When I was a prime contractor, I wrote into all of my subcontracts that they were not allowed to talk to the government without me okaying. As a subcontractor, you don't want that clause. When I was a subcontractor, I did everything I could to make sure I could talk to the program manager. And oftentimes when I was a subcontractor, they said, fine, we just don't want you talking to the contracting officer. Why? They want to control. Because remember, that prime contractor is taking credit for everything you do. It goes on their past performance as well. So my advice to you is you want to talk to that PM. And think about it. If The reason prime contractors, in some cases, not all, but in some cases don't want their subcontractors talking to the government is they don't want to get cut out. When it comes time to recompete, what's a common business practice? Cut out the man. So sometimes you want to get in there as a sub, do well, and then to the degree that you're contractually able to have the conversations with your customer about how you can be more efficient, more effective, and less costly, because all contracts come up to be renewed. And something that people don't realize is contracts come up to be renewed at every option year. And if I'm a program manager, I say, well, I have an easy solution, and I can reduce my costs, and all I got to do is not exercise the option year, and I can go to a federal supply schedule, throw it out to 3 companies, and get cheaper, better, faster. I'm just speaking for myself. I might be interested. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just sort of throwing this out there, you know. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Okay.
With that said, does the Federal Administration and Procurement do you work well with minority business partners? Okay. Man enough.
Yes. We encourage non-veteran-owned small businesses to partner with veteran-owned small businesses. The obvious reason, we have a Vet First program. We have a procurement hierarchy. That means we go through the idea of 2 or more SDVOSBs. The answer is no, then we go to VOSBs. If the answer is no, then we go to SDBs, 8As, women, etc. But I have 7,000 veteran-owned small businesses in the veteran information pages, which are eligible to do Vets First. It's not all that often that I have to go beyond SDVOSBs. They have an interest in making sure I don't go beyond SDVOSBs. So you want to do business in the VA? My advice is partner with a veteran. Okay, be a veteran, because that's the way we roll. But we do encourage joint ventures. We do encourage partnerships. There is some benefit from having, remember, in the limitation on subcontracting now, it's the category. That if you're an SDVOSB set aside, the work just has to be done by an SDVOSB, not necessarily the prime contractor. So, yes, the brutal truth. Now, I will give you some secret sauce.
I'm sorry, can you
Go
repeat that? Tom, did you say under an SDVOSB set aside the work?
New rules are coming out that allow it to be by the category.
Okay.
Okay? So if there's another SDVOSB on your team, the new rule is going to say that either one of them can do the work. You just can't have somebody that's outside the set-aside category doing the work. That's a big plus.
Under an SDVOSB set aside, in that case, would the SDVOSB have to be the prime?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, they have to be the prime.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now, I'll give you another piece of secret sauce. The National Veterans Engagement is Vets First. We have a saying in the VA. We're Vets First, we're not Vets only. We don't turn people away who are not veteran-owned small businesses from our National Veterans Engagement. So I would be thinking, if I'm not a veteran-owned small business, but I'm a small business, and one of the procurement decision makers I want to talk to is going to be there, might be a good idea. And we will not turn you away. What we're going to be doing for that national event is beginning in September, where registration opens up in September, we will be announcing who the procurement decision makers are who are coming. We will be announcing what NAICS codes they have requirements, in which they have requirements. Why? Because you go on that website and there's nobody there for you to talk to, don't come. If you register for the conference, and as we will be developing more and more procurement decision makers as we go along, and you're a month out from the conference, there's nobody there for you to talk to, cancel your registration. Why? Don't waste your time in a week in Atlanta if there's nobody there for you to talk to. Because I will tell you, while we're going to have great learning sessions, I'll also flat tell you, you can learn it elsewhere. You can learn it right here in this building, a lot of it. Okay? Come if there's somebody there to do business with.
You can't wait.
So,
a week in Timbuktu ain't all bad if you can do business. That's my view. If you can't do business, it doesn't matter how great the place is.
I have a couple of questions that people have either emailed us or texted us. And this first question is...
And Joe, unfortunately, these are going to have to be the last two, because my next stop is we're looking at a legislative package where we will start looking, there's a House bill out there to give credit for people who hire veterans and do some evaluation credit, which I think is a very interesting new idea that we're going to go kick around. So go ahead.
Okay,
I'll keep my answer short.
And this might be one that we have to follow up with offline, but this is from Ernest King of Second Corps. They're one of our clients. They're a training company, and they are a service-disabled veteran-owned small business.
Okay.
There was an opportunity out of the VAAA, the VA Acquisition Academy, for curriculum development services for the VA Acquisition Academy. There were...
I have no idea about it.
Okay. Well, I will tell you what has happened is there were 2 industry days.
Okay.
They were well attended. One of the industry days was during a snowstorm, and 60 companies showed up. And there are 3 contracts connected with procurement. And the feedback that we got from our client was that the Melissa Sterinsky and her team are doing a fantastic job, but the procurements are being handled through the Strategic Acquisition Center out of Fredericksburg, and they were suddenly and unexplainedly canceled. And the SAC has not responded to any requests for more information. So their question is, will these opportunities be eventually be, will the solicitations come back out because everything was canceled? And you got a lot of companies that spent a lot of time going after these opportunities, and they were suddenly canceled.
The short answer is I don't know. The longer answer is here's where MBDA could be a valuable partner for you small businesses, because Joe's going to take on the responsibility of getting me the name of the particular solicitation,
okay, so
that I can look into it, because normally if we have that kind of market response, my office gets very anxious about, we got good small business response, why aren't we going small business? I can't speak to why they would cancel an actual solicitation. People do not cancel solicitations lightly. Why? Because it's work. You do all the work to get to a solicitation, no contracting officer wants to cancel it.
Sure.
So I think my guess is you haven't gotten to solicitation yet. They've had a couple of industry days, they've done some source of sought work, and they're now, they haven't yet decided on the solicitation. But either way, if you let me know, we'll look into that and we'll give you an answer.
Yeah, I have an email chain here I'll send you.
Okay.
And Claudia, that other question, actually I think I have it here. Hold on just a moment. I'll try to get this for you very quickly. This one I'm not sure if I understand it, and I don't know who the question came from. How do I get my Chinese source parts approved as an alternate supplier? Do we have more information on that, Claudia?
This is Durwood Goings. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
That was my question. I'm a supplier of diesel engines, parts, and components.
I think I understand the question is, how do you get Chinese parts sourced?
Yeah, and the reason being is that I retired from a Fortune 500 company that does a lot of business with the government today. The parts that we source and provide to them comes from the same channel that I get my parts from, but unlike the Fortune 500 company that does business today, they bring them in from China, they repackage them, and they are sold to primarily DLA and other government officials locations. My parts are coming in from the same source, has the same fit, form, and function, and I've attempted, I've had contracts approved and later denied because of the source, and I was told later on that I needed to go out and get them re-engineered and go through and become an alternate supplier. Most of my parts, what I sell for, is anywhere between 30 to 40% cheaper because I don't have the overhead. And I've been struggling how to get set up as an alternate supplier. And so that is my question.
You've run afoul of the Buy America Act. I will tell you the ugly truth is it's very difficult to overcome that, especially if the government has a supplier that apparently meets the Buy America Act requirements. So normally getting certified as an alternative source means there are no sources within the United States. But that's I'll be frank, that's a tough hill to climb. I don't know that we have, I'll have to check to see if in our entrepreneur portal we've got some information on the Buy America Act. If not, Michelle, we'll put that up there for everybody to see. But that's a tough hurdle to get over.
Well, and it has been. I mean,
it's not me. It's your congressman.
I understand.
Well, everyone, thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and wrap up our session, but I just wanted to leave you with a couple of thoughts and some advice. One is we did send out a list of 14 end-of-fiscal-year opportunities. Now, these are opportunities that were downloaded from Government IQ, which is a forecasting service. These are not directly from the VA, and sometimes their best guess isn't 100% accurate, but they do a pretty good job, and these are certainly good leads to follow up on. They're end-of-fiscal-year opportunities. Many of them are going to require you put a team together very, very quickly. That's where your local MBDA Business Center can really assist you in helping you put together strong teams, especially teams involving service-disabled, better-known small businesses and better-known small businesses, because as you heard, there is a mandatory preference for those companies at the VA. The other thing I wanted to mention is for any of the IT companies that are interested in selling IT services to the VA Virtual Office of Acquisition can be found at voa.va.gov, voa.va.gov, and that is a website that is run by the Technology Acquisition Center out of New Jersey, where most IT procurements for the VA are done. That is a wealth of information. There's an enormous amount of information there about what the VA needs, what they're buying, their information architecture, all the details you need to put together proposals for the VA. So that's a great place to learn about IT requirements for the VA. The last thing I wanted to say is the opportunity sessions, the direct access sessions that Mr. Leney mentioned will be happening in August. We'll be getting a list of 3 different categories for IT services, and then there will also be categories for medical equipment and supplies and services, I believe.
Yes.
As soon as we get the list of categories, we'll distribute that to the MBDA business centers, and those business centers will distribute those requirements and categories to their clients, and we'll put together a list to send to the VA to get you invited to those sessions. And as Mr. Leney said, we're going to be vetting the companies and making sure that we're sending companies that are well qualified to be in front of those decision makers so that we're not wasting their time or your time. But thank you all very much. We really appreciate the time everybody spent. Feel free to follow up with your MBDA Business Center or our center for any questions, and we'll get any remaining questions. We'll be glad to help you get those questions answered.
By the way, CPARS is the Contractor Performance Assessment Reporting System. Thank you, MBDA Federal Procurement Center, for telling me something I didn't know.
And thank you, Mr. Leney.
Really appreciate it.